Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Give me just a moment there. I'm going to take this in here because I'm going to get kind of loud, I think. So let's just go in here. Try to keep it low key here. All right, there we go. Eventually, they'll probably want to, the dog will want to go out, but oh well. Until that time, let's go ahead and get into this. So, Joe Biden, I'm going to do this kind of like Jimmy Dore. I'm going to kind of sound like him. I ripped off so many other folks. I'm just going to rip off Jimmy Dore now. So let's get into this right quick here. We're going to show some clips of Joe Biden from the 1990s and kind of see how full of shit he is, and all these folks who are just like, oh, Joe Biden's going to, he's going to be so much better for foreign policy, this and that. Let's start with this clip. This is Senate approves U.S. troops deployment to Bosnia, or deployment in Bosnia. So there's Bob Dole at the end. We don't care about Bob Dole.
As we should.
But Europe cannot stay united without the United States.
Oh, I love that. So for those that noticed it, he says, but Europe cannot be united without the United States. Europe. I mean, mask off. I do appreciate it. Mask off. Europe cannot be united without the United States. Presumably, this is like 1992 or something like that. Yeah, salam. Oh, yeah. Europe cannot be united without the United States. Oh, I love that. Go ahead. And he doesn't have the mic right on him. He's just ranting and raving at this point. This is just neocon, neo-lib talk. Here we go. Oh, man.
There is no moral center in Europe.
We're the world policemen. We have the right to go into other countries and do what the hell we feel like. God damn it. This is America. America. Fuck yeah. Going around the world and blowing stuff up. America. Fuck yeah. Ah, damn. You gotta love it. Yeah, Biden supports pan-Europeanism. Yeah.
Had the French or the British.
Hold on. Whoa.
When in the last...
There's no moral center. Okay.
When in the last 2 centuries had the French or the British or the Germans or the Belgians or the Italians moved in a way to unify that continent?
Oh, please. It's not our fucking business, jackass. God damn, look at this motherfucker. This motherfucker just thinks we need to go in there because France can't handle it. Germany can't handle it. We're the only ones that can unite Europe. What is this? Is this some Kalergi plan shit? What is this, nigga?
Stand up to this kind of genocide. When have they done it?
We're the one that... Of course, I need to read that book by Parenti. I do have it on my shelf about Yugoslavia, but we supported Milosevic. Milosevic was a banker. And I know you can blame the NATO for all this other shit that happened too. Give me this guy's a true believer, folks.
The only reason anything is happening now is because the United States of America finally is understanding her role.
Allowing us to make this announcement.
Yep. Biden's anti-war, though. Biden is anti-war. All that stuff where he was, he's going to be so much better on foreign policy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Imagine if they found footage of, whoever else, but you cannot undo all that type of shit. You cannot just... There are a lot of idiotic lefties out there who really think that, oh, well, we got rid of Trump, and Joe Biden has always been a neocon, and he always will be, and he does not give a fuck about ordinary Americans. All right? He doesn't.
No one would.
Oh, this is okay. That's all. That's the end of his speech. That was brilliant. Yeah, anti-war. Yeah, the grand chessboard. very least, it was a rousing speech. He doesn't do that sort of speech anymore. No, he doesn't. Yeah, he's too old for that shit now. He's too old for that shit. Like I say, Kamala Harris is going to be... Yeah, I've seen this take, though, but I think Kamala Harris is going to be the new... is going to be the power behind the throne, I think, in a lot of ways. And like I say, there are so many neocons and all that type of shit that's going on. You know, it's bullshit. Let me take a look at this video here. Let me see what we got. Sorry. Should have clicked on that. Sorry. Let me go ahead. Sorry for the double audio. It's coming. I know it's coming. Oh, sorry. Should have clicked on that. There we go. Sorry. Okay. Interesting video and that video. Okay, there we go. Okay, we'll take a look at these. Let's see what we got here. Okay. Oh, yeah.
I could make a compelling case.
I was looking for this one.
Before
this
any
is the one
jury
from
in the world.
Atlantis Project,
Where
right?
are your
Atlantis, yeah, or Atlas Project, yeah. I saw this one. Yeah, this is a good. Yeah, this is.
lawyer? I could make a compelling case before any jury in the world that you have every right, and the leaders here have every right to seek retribution and let loose the dogs of war.
Look at that. That's some deep hate, isn't it? That's some deep hate right there. That's the real devil shit right there. You know, before dogs of war became like a real big thing, this nigga was saying shit like this. This is the type of dude that's our president now.
You have every right.
Albanian.
Where are your lawyers? I could, before a jury, make the case that not only Albania.
Those Albanians in particular, I'm not going to speak on Hoja Gang, but it's like those particular Albanians were nothing but killers. They were scumbags who came in and wanted to kill people. Simple as. And then some of those same leaders later became pretty high up in, I think Bosnia or something. I can't think of it offhand. I can't think of the organization. It's like AKP or something like that. Or I get all these names mixed up, but it's like, this is the type of shit that goes on, man.
Principally, all Muslims in the region were the victim of not an accidental, but a very well thought out,
He doesn't give a fuck about Muslims. He doesn't. Let's be honest. Go ahead.
very well planned, late 20th century version.
Yeah, he does.
Of a final solution. The final solution concocted by one of the most maniacal men I have ever met in my life.
The question, it seems to me, is what is the definition of victory? We sat in this program before. The definition of victory was all the troops out of Kosovo, the Albanians back in Kosovo, and a NATO-led force in Kosovo. That's not total victory. That's not the victory I want. That's not the victory John wants. I've been saying we should go to Belgrade and we should have a Japanese, German-style occupation of that country, and we should have public trials in order to...
Oh, please. Give me a fucking break. Give me a Go ahead.
Strike away this mask of the Serbian victimization.
I was suggesting we bomb Belgrade. I was suggesting that we send American pilots in and blow up all the bridges on the Drina. Isn't it interesting that we didn't have to go that far to begin the solution about it?
Blowing up bridges is perfectly normal. It's perfectly normal, apparently.
About 200,000 people were killed in the meantime by the time it did? Yes.
Yep. Everyone forgets that. You know, nobody wants to really get in. Oh, we're not doing Pastor Steve Anderson. I'm not going to get into the whole Baptist sort of thing. I'm sure that he does good work. I'm just not going to touch it. Nothing against anybody. Army Ball. Pastor Steve Anderson is such a mean. I don't want to get into that, to be honest with you. It's nothing against you, but yeah, I'm not gonna, yeah. But yeah. Yeah, we're not gonna get into Steve Anderson. There's some lines I'm just like, nah, we're not gonna do that.
R. Biden Jr. from Delaware, ranking member of
and the number of revenge attacks that we're seeing here in Kosovo. How are you going to address this?
If the KLA
Oh, the
does
KLA,
not
that's what I meant. Yeah, the KLA.
comply with the September 19th commitment, my expectation is that support for the United States' continued involvement, either on the civilian side or the military side, will dissipate very, very, very rapidly.
Sharp odds with some of the things the administration was doing, but who constantly pressed for.
I see the solution in the context of two very important things happening. One, Mr. Milosevic going. Whether he goes to The Hague or whether he goes to a monastery or whether he goes, wherever the hell he goes, he must be gone.
We helped support Milosevic. He was a banker. I'm going to continue to say that. It's the same thing with Saddam Hussein. We helped Saddam Hussein get in the... And you can say what you want to about Saddam Hussein, but it's like, we helped put these people in, and then we kick them to the curb so that we can make ourselves look like the good guys. When we created the mess in the fucking first place.
As part of the solution to the problem. Secondly, one of the reasons why I'm here in the regions is not just to be in Kosovo. I will be going to Romania, and I'm going to Bosnia, I'm going to Bulgaria, I've been in Macedonia, and it seems to me that...
Massive riots would happen in Serbia if he went today. I think that, people are still saying that they, even when Donald Trump was elected in 2016, they were plenty of riots that went on in Serbia because they know exactly who this motherfucker is. You hear that shit? We should be going into Belgrade and, have a German or a Japanese style occupation force. The fuck out of here with that. I'd hate him too. I'd hate him too if I was Serbian. You can feel as you want to. And I've gone back and forth about how I feel about the Balkans in general. I'm an ignorant American. I can't really speak on it. It's also complicated. Same thing I don't talk about Nagorno-Karabakh that much. Because I know that's some deep, centuries old type of shit. Same thing with the Balkans. That's some centuries old shit that I'm not going to get involved with. You think that Hatfields and McCoys in the United States or something like that, they got beef that goes back centuries. I'm not fucking with that. I don't want to get, that's just me.
That the future of Kosovo and the prospect of its being a multi-ethnic society depend in large part upon the overall development of the region and whether or not the Balkans come into the 21st century in a way they never participated in the 20th century.
Oh, boy. They need to, this sounds like, what they say with the whole...
participated in the 20th century.
Oh, boy. That sounds like what they do with the whole, Sweden needs to learn to be multicultural. I'm sorry, that's the Wignat. I know that Wignats always bring that. They used to bring it up. That was kind of the old thing, but it's like,
National Syndicalist American Phalange Party.
Oh, the black shirt and the bear. Oh, man, this still goes on, huh? Okay, yeah, we can cover this. Okay. Let's go ahead and we'll go back to this right quick.
As an integral part of Europe, as democracies.
But I just want to say that let me just stress again what ethnic differences in this region really are. They're just racism.
It's not just racism. Oh, man. It's just racism. Oh, even in the 1990s. It's just racism. It's just racism between people. You don't understand that type of beef, do you? I don't understand it. It's like, unless you're from the Balkans or, it's like, I'm sure Ole has experienced the same thing being Ukrainian. That's some deep, deep sort of beef that goes on, man. No, it's like Americans, we don't know anything about beef like that. Let me go back a little bit because that's some straight bullshit.
Differences in this region really are. They're just racism. It's just another fancy word for racism. There's no other way around it. And we have to face it, and there's no place for it. And the Serbs of this region have a historic right to live here too. But the events of the last decade have made that incredibly difficult. So,
We have this little club.
Disgusting. Just disgusting. I do have to say that. It is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. It's just racism. It's just racism. It's just racism. Ku Klux, and I know this is from a Trump channel. I'm already going to tell you. That's the source, Trump War Room. But still, I'm not going to make y'all watch that whole 25-minute eulogy speech that he gives. But we'll listen to this a little bit here.
As also noted, Robert C. Byrd was a parliamentary library, a keeper of the institution of the Senate.
So many people are covering for Biden. It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me how they'll say, Donald Trump's a white nationalist. He supported the alt-right. The alt-right wouldn't be what it is. And yet Joe Biden, and of course people will say, well, Robert Byrd later renounced his, his role in being part of the Ku Klux Klan. He renounced that. He was a good person. Here we are, though.
And he was the institution itself. But to me, and many people here today, like guys I see, Bill Bradley and Jim Sasser, who long left the Senate for greener pastures.
They're getting money.
And I hope better remuneration. We used to kid about that too, but for a lot of us, he was a friend, he was a mentor, and he was a guide.
Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Donald Trump's a white nationalist, but when Joe Biden says that, Robert Byrd, former member of the Ku Klux Klan, was nice, it's okay. It's perfectly okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's not just racism, as you say. Conflicts that go back centuries and imperial games of old imperial powers. Exactly. Yeah. It goes back. Vosh is going to be live. Can we hate watch? Well, we'll see some of it. We'll see some of it. But yeah. It's some deep shit, man. Even I, as an ignorant American, I know that beef goes back centuries. And it's just disgusting, man. It is. I don't care what you say. It's disgusting. This is what we voted for. Because Americans are... I wish I could just say retarded, but I think that it's that we just have this memory lapse. The biggest time that I can think of was with the pendulum just constantly swings back and forth. It's like having those, the on your desk. They used to have, it was a fairly big thing with the balls that you can hit, and the other one, the momentum comes through the inertia, and that other ball. So yeah, they constantly go back and forth, tick 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 tick, and that's what it is in America, in the United States, because you had people like Jimmy Carter who were just fucking up royally. Whether it was Desert One going down in Iran, or whether it was whatever. And they said, well, you have to get him out. We got to put in, Ronald Reagan. Or Bush is so terrible, let's get in Obama. Or Trump is so bad, we have to get rid of him. Let's put on this guy who lied about, getting 3 college degrees. Let's lie about that guy. I mean, or let's get that guy elected, And I know that you can say, well, Bernie was screwed over, this and that, but he isn't Trump. Eventually, once Donald Trump finally just gives up and says, all right, I'm done. And once the smugness wears off, people are going to realize that Joe Biden has put the United States back on the same trajectory as it did, where the drone strikes will continue, the bombings will continue, the idea that we are trying to spread freedom and democracy will continue. It's not going to go away. It's going to increase more and more. And to me, that's the real face of American fascism, if you want to put it that way. The the overlap between the military and politics, or more importantly, industry and business being involved with politics and being seamless. Absolutely, former Wall Street goons are going to be in Joe Biden's cabinet. Up to a third of those folks have worked for defense industries, this and that. That's what we have. That's what we have. You can say what you will about Trump. U.S. interventions in Latin America, yeah. Yeah, that has ever existed in real life, yeah. But that's the whole thing. I mean, like I say, I could blame the American people, but it's just such bullshit. It is. It's just, why would we allow that? You're just so mad about Trump because of mud trannies or this and that. And I know Donald Trump supported the LGBTQ community too and all this. I'm not going to sit here and carry water for him. What I will say, though, is wait and see what's going to happen with Joe Biden. For me, you judge somebody. There's a lot of folks that are carrying, that are still carrying water for him. I'm not going to talk about Bull with the fifth column for a while because I did kind of spurg out on him again. And I think that, I should probably try to take a break from that. Instead, we're going to spurg about Vosh and whatever bullshit comes out of his mouth in about half an hour, apparently. But yeah, we'll go ahead and watch that when it comes up. So let's go ahead and do... Okay, this is where Joe Biden talks about the EU, I think. I don't give a shit. You know what? Let's not do that. We're going to go ahead and do this National Syndicalist American Phalange Party. What we want with some insight. Okay.
Was a party that existed between 1985 and the year 2000. And
what?
Some members carried it on unofficially until the year 2004. Today,
Really?
I will be reading a selection of a work of theirs that they wrote sort of as a manifesto of what they would like to see in American society.
God damn. This guy has a lot of pauses. Man, I speak pretty shit, but golly, put some emphasis in. Blah, 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 blah. 4 or 5 second pause. I'm going to read what they wrote. Ooh, that's hard to listen to. Ooh. We'll try. Yeah, that's true. Imperial Russia and even the early days of the USSR. Malarusi, Little Russians to destroy the Ukrainian identity and bring it closer to Russia. Yeah. This does sound kind of... But let's go ahead and listen to some of it. And then I think this is actually a speech from Jose Antonio de Primo de Rivera.
Believes in nothing. Not even...
This sounds better. Let's go ahead and watch this instead, because this sounds much better.
Even in itself. The liberal state allows everything to be questioned, even the value of its own existence. For the liberal statesman, there is nothing illicit in the doctrine by which the state is replaceable.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
That is to say, in his position at the head of an established state, he does not even believe in the intrinsic merits, the justice, the usefulness of that particular state, rather like a ship's captain, who is not sure whether it is better to make port or to be shipwrecked. The liberal outlook amounts to taking a frivolous view of one's own destiny. It permits one to hoist oneself to positions of authority without even being persuaded that there should be any positions of authority at all, or feeling that they entail any obligations, not even that of holding on to them. They recognize but one limiting factor, the law. Oh yes, one can attempt the destruction of all that exists, but without overstepping
Sorry for the
boundaries.
boobies. I didn't know
of
this.
law.
I was going to be on there.
But what exactly is the law? Here again, there is no reference to any immutable principles. The law is the expression of the sovereign will of the people, in practice that of the majority of voters. 2 points in this connection. Firstly, for the liberal, the law is not consecrated by its aims, but by its source. Those schools of thought whose constant aim is the public good consider good laws those which serve such an end, and bad laws those which stray from this course, regardless of who has promulgated them. The democratic school of thought, democracy being the system which most fully expresses liberal thinking, considers that a law is good and legitimate if it has obtained the consent of the majority of voters, even though its content may be utterly monstrous. Secondly, liberals do not consider what is
legalizing, decriminalizing drugs in Oregon is going to be a very tricky situation, to say the least. But yeah, go ahead.
Right to be a category of reason, but a product of will. Nothing is right in itself. There is never any reference to some scale of values by which to gauge the rightness of any law that is passed. It is enough to find sufficient votes endorsing it. All this can be summed up in one sentence. The people is sovereign. Sovereign in the sense that it is entitled to justify its own decisions. The people's decisions are right because they are the people's. The theories of regal absolutism stated quod principe placuit legem abe vigorum. The time was bound to come when the theoreticians of democracy would say there has to be a certain authority in society whose actions do not have to be right in order to be valid. This authority resides only in the people. These are the words of Jurieu, one of the forerunners of Rousseau. The liberal state, that uninspired and indifferent state, wrote these 3 splendid words on the frontispiece of its temple. But under its auspices, none of these 3 things flourish. Liberty cannot live without the protection of strong and immutable principles. When principles change with the fluctuations of public opinion, there can be freedom only for those who happen to agree with that change. The minorities have no choice but to suffer in silence. Under the tyrants of the Middle Ages, the victims at least had the comfort of knowing that they were being tyrannized. The tyrant might be oppressing them, but those who were actually suffering oppression nonetheless were right, and the tyrant was wrong. High above the heads of tyrants and subjects alike, there used to be certain eternal truths, in the light of which each was given his nonetheless in the democratic state. This does not apply. The law, not the state, but the law, the supposed will of the majority, is always right. Thus, the victim of oppression, besides being oppressed, can moreover be charged with dangerous waywardness if he calls the law
There is a
unjust.
very brief
Not even that
explanation
freedom
of
remains
what
to him.
socialism is.
That is why,
And I am
the
going to read
belief
it to you,
that a people
and we
has
are going to talk
gained
about this
its
because there's so much.
freedom the very day it proclaims the dogma of national sovereignty and accepts universal suffrage is said by Duguit to be fatally misguided. Beware, he says, of democratic absolutism. More energetic precautions may be needed against the despotism of popular assemblies than against the despotism of kings. A thing remains unjust, even if it be ordained by the people and its representatives, quite as much as though it had been ordained by a prince. Because of the dogma of popular sovereignty, this tends to be all too easily forgotten. This is what happens to freedom under the rule of the majority, and to equality too. First of all, there is no equality between the dominant party which legislates as it pleases and the rest of the citizens who endure it. Besides, the liberal state produces an even more profound inequality, economic inequality, since in theory the worker and the capitalist enjoy equal freedom to enter into a labor contract, the worker ends up by being enslaved by the capitalist. Not that the latter obliges the former by force to accept any given conditions. He merely lets hunger take its course. He makes an offer which in theory the worker is free to reject, but if he does reject it, he will have nothing to eat, and eventually he is bound to accept it. This is how liberalism brought us the accumulation of capital and the proletarianization of the great mass of the people. In order to defend the oppressed against the economic tyranny of the powerful, something as anti-liberal as socialism had to emerge. Lastly, It is fraternity's turn to be shattered. Since the democratic system is based on the rule of the majority, the only way to attain victory within it is to get the support of the majority at any cost. To this end, all weapons are permissible. It is all right to accuse an opponent wrongfully of bad faith if this helps to deprive him of a few votes. If there is to be a majority and a minority, there must needs be division.
You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
If the other party is to be split, there must needs be hatred.
Don't boo, vote. Vote. Voting's the best revenge.
Division and hatred, though, are incompatible with fraternity. And thus, the members of one and the same people cease to feel part of a whole, superior to themselves, part of a lofty historical unity which encompasses all of them.
Take it with a grain of salt, especially with the showing of Franco. Franco didn't really, do anything with syndicalism, this and that. But yeah, anyway, just to say, disclaimer.
The fatherland is reduced to the state of a battlefield, where two or several contending factions seek to gain ground, each heeding a different sectarian voice, while the dear voice of the common land, which ought to make all of them brothers, seems to have fallen silent.
True.
All the aims of the new state could be summed up in a single word: unity. The fatherland is a historic whole, into which all of us merge, superior to all and any of our groups. Out of respect for this unity, all classes and individuals must seek to adapt themselves, and its realization must be based on the following two principles. Firstly, with regard to its purpose, the state must be a tool in the service of that unity, in which it must firmly believe. Nothing that goes against this precious and transcendental unity can be accepted as being good, be those who favor it many or few. Secondly, with regard to its shape, the state can only be established on a basis of national solidarity, of vigorous and fraternal cooperation. The class struggle and the festering strife of party politics are incompatible with this concept of the state. The creation of a new type of politics wherein these two principles will be joined, that is the task which history has entrusted to our generation.
Pretty good. Yeah, like I say, I think of it like this. If I supported the UK Conservative Party, yeah. Yeah. I would say this, I think you can simplify liberalism, in more of a individualist sense. For example, I think back to Mobb Deep, because I've been destroyed by hip hop. My mind has been destroyed by it. But you think about every man for theyself in this land, we be gunning and keep them shook crews running like they supposed to. They come around, but they never come close to. Excuse me. I could see it inside your face. You in the wrong place. Cowards like you get to get the whole body laced up with bullet holes and such, et cetera, et cetera. But, it's the same thing on another song, too, by Mobb Deep. It's like, fuck the whole world, man. My money comes first. Out for the gusto and trust nobody. But that's kind of liberalism in a nutshell to me. It's like every man for themselves. There's no unity. There's no loyalty. It's only what you can do for the time being to get people on your side. And then you can cut them up. Yeah, speak the wrong words, man, and you will get touched. Exactly. You can put your whole army against Matiman. I guarantee you it'll be your very last time breathing, right? You minor, we made you. You all up in the game and don't deserve to be a player. That's kind of what, America represented, really. I'm surprised nobody has really done that. Any left-wing writers would really describe the United States in that way. But it's like you could listen to that whole infamous album from Mobb Deep, and really get some deeper stuff in there, you could listen to a lot of hip-hop and get the same type of thing. But it's like, more specifically, yeah, liberalism is middle-class self-interest. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I remember Hitler talking about the transcending future of Germany using internal values of old Germany. He wasn't an agrarian. Yeah. Kill him up and release a new vid on bread tube. Yeah. Let's get into it. I do actually have it. Let's get into it. Why not?
Confusion about what socialism is. So many misconceptions. I said many times, I learned in school that communism is that everyone gets paid the same wage no matter how hard they work. Wrong. Communism is not 100% equality of incomes. You know, I've also heard people say communism is when the government does it, right? If the government's involved, that's communism. Wrong. Every country in the world has a government. Every government taxes people. Every government, you know, has a post office or carries out at least some basic functions. That's wrong. All right. But this is what the Communist Manifesto says about what the communist revolution is. So I'm going to read it to you because there seems to be so much confusion about this. And I'm going to read it to you, and you're going to see this is just like 2 sentences from the Communist Manifesto. And this blows away BreadTube. All of BreadTube should like go away and shut the hell up after I read this sentence. All right. As we have seen, the first step in the revolution by the working class is to raise the proletariat to the position of the ruling class to win the battle for democracy. Then the next sentence, the important part, the proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest by degree all capital from the bourgeoisie and centralize all instruments of production in the hands of the state. The proletariat organizes the ruling class and to increase total productive forces as rapidly as possible. So BreadTube should die. I mean, should just go away now. I mean, they should just go away.
Should die. Oh boy, Caleb,
right, so
you should have just said it. You should just said you should have just said die. But I know he's very careful. Like I say, it's the same thing when I asked him about Felix Dzerzhinsky. He's like, I don't know who Felix Dzerzhinsky is. He knows damn well who Felix Dzerzhinsky is. He's being very careful. So you know what? I can't really knock him for that. But I'm just saying, come on, man. If you acknowledge Stalin, you got to acknowledge Felix Dzerzhinsky and what he did to keep things in power. You know, he laid that pimp hand down. You know, be honest, man. Don't hide behind something. You know what I mean?
The proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest by degree all capital from the bourgeoisie and centralize all instruments of production into the hands of the state. Now, what does the state mean? The state means the government, right? It means the armed body of men with a legitimacy of armed force. So when all over BreadTube, you see these people say, Marx wasn't a statist. Marx never wanted the government to be involved in anything. Marx did not believe in state involvement. We're against state socialism too. Well, if Marx was against government involvement and he was against the state being involved, why did he write centralize all instruments of production into the hands of the state?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sorry, but it's like if you think Marx, Marx just said, you and your friends should open a pencil factory where everyone has a fair share. Marx never wanted the government. That's evil Stalinism. Oh, Marx wanted just everyone to start a hippy-dippy co-op in the woods and have a pottery factory and share the profits. Wrong. Centralize all instruments of production into the hands of the state.
Mm-hmm.
So BreadTube, when they say Marx was not a statist, which is a very common belief, Marx did not believe in the state. Marx did not want the government to be involved. Wrong. Wrong, okay? You can say you don't want that, and you're free to think that you don't want the government involved. That's your business. But don't say that Marx didn't want the government involved. He very clearly wanted the government involved. Next, right? The proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest by degree all capital from the bourgeoisie. Now, what does by degree mean? Means not all at once. By degree. meaning that there can be a market sector in a socialist society. It doesn't say the proletariat will use its supremacy to immediately seize all capital into the hands of the state. No, 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 no. It says it will centralize all instruments of production in the hands of the state, meaning they'll be directed by the state. And it says by degree, all capital will be wrested from the bourgeoisie by degree, meaning it is a gradual process, meaning that at some points it may be necessary to have a big market sector. At other points, it may be necessary to have everything run by the state. But it does not say
That sounds like their positionism.
the proletariat, everything in a socialist society.
Sometimes you do this, sometimes you do that. Sometimes we have socialism here that's controlled by the state versus other times it's controlled by market forces. That sounds like their positionism. Just saying.
Society must be government owned all the time. So people who say Vietnam's not socialist, China's not socialist, Cuba's not socialist because they all have a market sector. Well, they're wrong. They are all totally 100% wrong. Right? Next.
Marx was a third positionist. My NEP, yeah. Wacky ideologies, yeah. I'm so fast, my yeah. Is this nigga on yet? Oh, okay. It's just okay.
Right? The proletariat organized as the ruling class, and to increase,
yeah,
the total productive forces as rapidly as possible. What does increase the total productive forces as rapidly as possible mean? Now, does that mean at that point we make sure that everyone is poor and it's fair? Right? Libertarians say this all the time, right? Socialism is about making everyone equally poor. What does increase the total productive forces? That doesn't mean make people poorer. And this is a big thing among BreadTube and the synthetic left also. Oh, people have too much stuff, right? We need to go get poorer, right? We need to lower consumption to help Mother Earth. People need to stop having children because there's too many people in the world. No. After all instruments of production are in the hands of the state, they increase the total productive forces as rapidly as possible. Right? So we have the proletariat using its political supremacy, taking control of the government, and then seizing by degree.
Marxist, Hitlerist, yeah. BreadTube is Anprim, maybe, yeah.
From the bourgeoisie, by degree, meaning as necessary, as they want to, and centralizing, that's the important line, centralizing all instruments of production in the hands of the state, meaning that even if there's private corporations, they still must do as the state central plan says, and to increase the total productive forces as rapidly as possible, meaning the state at the center of the economy organizes the economy to grow and expand and make everyone as wealthy as possible, as quickly as possible, to increase the total productive forces as rapidly as possible. So not abolish billionaires, right? What is abolish billionaires? It's a big thing, right? AOC, Bernie, abolish billionaires, right? No, it's not about making people poor. It's not about making sure no one can ever be as wealthy as a billionaire is in 2020. It's about increasing the total productive forces as rapidly as possible. This sentence I just read to you, where Karl Marx explains the purpose of the communist revolution, has China written all over it. That is China. The proletariat, the proletarian party, the Chinese Communist Party, took control of the state in 1949, and they have wrested by degree all capital from the bourgeoisie, meaning sometimes they've had a totally nationalized economy. Now they have more of a market sector. However, they have centralized all instruments of production in the hands of the state, meaning that even private corporations must do what the Chinese state central planners, what the 5-year plan, what the Communist Party wants done.
Pinguist, yeah.
Right? And what has China done? They have increased the total productive forces as rapidly as possible. They have turned China into the second largest economy in the world. They have raised 800 million people out of poverty, right? By centralizing the instruments of production in the hands of the state. They have then raised the productive forces as rapidly as possible. They have raised 800 million. So anyone who says China is not socialist needs to just read this sentence, right? Maybe you don't think that's what socialism is, but what Marx said socialism is, China is 100% in compliance with. The proletariat used its political supremacy, i.e. the Communist Party, the Workers' Party, took control of the state. It rested by degree all capital, meaning that they seized some businesses. They didn't seize others, but they made a decision. They've centralized all instruments of production in the hands of the state, not worker cooperatives, but in the hands of the state, right? Marx wasn't a statist, Caleb. Marx didn't believe in the government doing anything. Well, in the hands of the state, that's pretty clear. And they then increased in different countries. Lives as a billionaire currently lives. I'm a few paragraphs. It's Communist Manifesto.
That's true. Okay, yeah. Let's go ahead and respond to this. Yeah, because this guy's a bit of a pussy. Because he put it on private, he took it off private, and everything else. But yeah, let's hear what this guy has to say. This guy's socialism for all.
Anybody who is online doing things about socialism sooner or later is probably going to run across a Caleb Maupin video. He's like one of the major left tube people out there. And he works at RT, so you'll see him doing RT stories sometimes, and he also has his own channel. There, have been kind of like long-standing allegations or rumors or whatever about his being a Nazbol or National Bolshevik, sort of like a right-wing, culturally right-wing. Or
let's go ahead and get into this. This is a video from Alexander Dugin's YouTube channel. I've seen bits of it. I haven't seen the whole thing because I don't really care necessarily. I think Dugin, I don't know, he's not really that influential. I think people make him out to be this boogeyman. Left-wing folks and right-wing folks, they all love to be, they love talking about this nigga like he's going to take over it. No. Yeah.
From more of a real-world background. And I don't know what the hell's been going on the left tube because I haven't been watching it. That's just not the place I'm at in life. I did this channel to just read some books and put a few thoughts out there on the movement. And there's apparently some really weird shit going on online. So here you go. Caleb Maupin, 2018. This is from his channel. Enjoy.
I only speak for myself when I'm here, but I find this moment to be somewhat pivotal for me. To be sitting here next to Alexander Dugin. The first time I heard the name Dugin, it was thrown at me as an epithet, and it was in 2014. And at that time, I was a card-carrying member of a Marxist-Leninist political party. And at that time, folks will recall the overthrowing of the elected government of Ukraine and the installation of a pro-Western regime. And as that was taking place, I, based on my understanding of how to understand the world and the training that I'd received as a Marxist-Leninist, it appeared to me that what was happening should be opposed, and that that the forces in the East who were resisting this regime being imposed by the West, that they should be supported. And around that time, a number of people began to denounce me in left-wing circles. I was called a Nazbol. I was called a Strasserist. And one of the favorite epithets that people began throwing at me was I was called a Duginist. And I did not know what a Duginist was. I did not know who Alexander Dugin was. So
nobody knows what that means.
I had to look into this. I had to look it up. And around that time, I was also traveling. In 2014, I first visited the Islamic Republic of Iran. I attended a conference in Iran. And I was in Iran, and I saw in Iran a society that had broken free from Western capitalism. Their national industries were under the control of the public. The oil was under the control of the public. The banking was under the control of the public. The state was working to mobilize the population to raise the living standards. It seemed to have broken free from this free market capitalist system that we had in the West. And when I was in Iran, I remember at this conference I attended, many of the guests from around the world said to me, "You've got to read the writings of Alexander Dugin." And then, oddly enough, I went to Venezuela. I was in Venezuela in 2015. And in Venezuela, this was a Marxist government. The leader was quoting, Lenin and Trotsky and such. But I noticed that there was a clear difference in the way that the activists in Venezuela were talking. They talked a lot different than the leftists in the United States talked. And when I brought this up with the Venezuelans, they said to me, "Oh, you really ought to read Alexander Dugin." And so, with all of these people mentioning Dugin to me, with people accusing me of being a Duginist, I thought it would be best that I actually study the writings of Alexander Dugin.
Guys,
so,
I have multiple pieces
I had
of
to
good news.
get a copy of The Fourth Political Theory, and I read the book cover to cover, and it was fascinating to me as someone who'd only really studied the political left and the ideology around it to see a wider analysis of the world. And there were many things in the book that I did agree with. The most essential being this understanding of what liberalism is, and this understanding that there is this ideology coming out of the Western countries, the United States, Western Europe, and that seeks to put the individual above all else and break down any sense of collectivism or bond or community. And that this liberalism has a left-wing face and it has a right-wing face. And as I read The Fourth Political Theory, I noticed that I had been kind of aware of what he was describing in this text for a long time, because I myself, I'm not from New York City. I'm not from Los Angeles, California. I'm from the heartland of the United States. I grew up in rural Ohio. The town I lived in had less than 5,000
I will
people.
say this about Caleb Oppen, though, is that he can really sell it. He can really sell it. But yeah, shut up, Vosh. Exactly. Yeah, we're not going to do. Yeah, shall we get to Reddit's favorite revisionist? Yeah, exactly. Best Dugin is always, he's an anti-liberal Dugin. Yeah. Oh boy.
And I got attracted to left-wing ideas because I saw leaders like Fidel Castro, and Kim Jong-il and others. And, these are leaders that are leading their country. They're controlling the economy and raising people up out of poverty. And
Kim Il-sung was probably more based. And Kim Jong-un, is trying to be based more on his grandpa. I like him better. Kim Jong-il just kind of looks like a goblin kind of a guy. I don't mean to be offensive, but yeah, just saying.
And fighting against imperialism, and that's what I was attracted to. And when I got involved in organized political leftist groups, I noticed that there was something very, very different about them. That I would get excited about Fidel Castro and seeing revolutionary armies marching in uniforms and such. And the leftists would tell me, "Oh no, we don't talk that way." I would go to meetings and I would see people, intentionally wearing clothes that were all ripped and had holes in them. And I would think, why are they not professional? Do they not want to look like serious politicians? I always felt very odd in left circles, and it was very strange. And I just felt like, what had attracted me to the leftist ideology was very different than the people I was around. And then I began to do some reading, and I became aware of something which is, at this point, one of the programs that the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency brags about being its greatest achievement. And if you Google it, you can Google the phrase Congress for Cultural Freedom. And if you Google this, the first thing that will come up is the website of the U.S. CIA. And starting in 1949, there was a Congress.
Yeah, okay. Let's go ahead and cut to the end here and see what this jackass actually has to say. There we go.
Some of whom are more left than others. So, I don't know. What do I think needs to happen right now? I think we need a movement towards socialism in the United States. And two, I think that it has to happen outside the Democratic Party. I think that U.S. politics has not been all that different over the last 100 years. I don't think it's changed that much in 100 years because capitalism is still capitalism. I think the only thing that's really changed is the technology. But basically, you still have a small far left. You have a progressive social democratic reformist type
Mensheviks,
segment.
Basically.
You
Just say
have
Mensheviks,
the left
jackass.
and right of the liberal status quo. Then you have the far right and fascists, extreme nationalists, and sort of would-be tyrants in that direction.
Love that.
We see now, I just did a video yesterday on AOC talking about how the Dems are just bashing the Justice Democrats and all,
This guy was praising AOC. You shouldn't be praising AOC. She's cringe. AOC is going to sell you out. She is going to learn the game, and she's going to learn to play it. If you think that she actually gives a fuck about actual progressive policies or some Green New Deal type bullshit, no, she doesn't.
the Bernieites who like went into the party to totally transform the Democratic Party. That's not working. I've been saying that for a while. I don't think it's going to work. I think that that movement is a good thing. Whether we get social democracy at first, whatever it is, I think that that faction is likely what we at Marxists in the United States have to work with. I think that that honestly probably is the best that we can do at this point. I think that we should, you know, as the far left, build ourselves up as much as possible. But I think the end of the day, we, at least for a while, are going to have to work with the Social Democrats. Whether there's a split at some point, you know, remains to be seen. And if there is a split,
there will be a split. We all know there's going to be a split. He responds to specific points in the video. Oh, okay, really? Okay. Well, I'll have to go back then. Sorry.
Between the, like, you know, far left and, you know, the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks, as it were.
Well, let's go back.
Populism frequently, you know, there is, you know, just like you can have left libertarianism. I mean, I would put can have in quotes there too, but like you can have left libertarianism. It's kind of meaningless though, because fundamentally, if you believe in a society that runs just on contracts and property, I mean, then you're leaving intact most of the racist networks. Like you have no formal opposition to those things that control property and contracts and courts and things like that. That kind of blew my mind that Caleb just said, we'll see where he goes with this, but it kind of just blew my mind that he just said he's not a Marxist-Leninist, but a populist. Maybe he'll take that in a different direction. Populism, not
well,
really.
I think he's being smart. I think he, as he explained, is that he saw all these cringe LARPers who had holes in their shirts trying to look like they were fake punks from the 1980s and whatnot, acting like they were all going to, you know, rock the Casbah. And they didn't. They were all LARPers. And he found out that they were fucking clowns who were, it was just about aesthetics versus an actual fucking movement. He explained that. I don't know if, you know what, fuck, go ahead.
Your friend, there have been a few, I mean, it's kind of like a petty bourgeois movement. The major moment of populism in the United States was like the 1880s, like post-Civil War.
What? I guess, yeah, I guess Teddy Roosevelt never happened. I guess, you know, yeah, I guess those movements didn't happen, that, you know.
It was like a movement of farmers that were the populists. I believe they made the Populist Party. They wanted like a silver standard instead of a gold standard. I mean, yeah, that's reasonable. But again, like as communism and socialism emerged, because again, we're talking about 1880s, Marx and Engels, that was just a few decades before. And of course, culture spread more slowly in those days. You know, communism really spoke more to the proletariat at that point. But as proletarianization was advancing, it really became like the wealthier ranchers stayed populist, and they tended to be more conservative, racist, petty bourgeois. I would say eventually what we know as American fascism. And then, you know, more of the left-leaning working class defenders and promoters, and of course, there's a racial component as well, became socialists and communists. So I don't know why anyone, you know, post the 1890s is really defending populism when you have the alternative of socialism. But going backward to the dig at modern art, first of all, you know, I'm a big supporter of the arts.
No, fuck modern art. Fuck modern art. And I saw this in the comments too. They were like, yeah, we could see that you're full of shit because, yeah, art in the video. What are your thoughts on socialist, realist, and other? Yeah, I bet he's not a big fan. Go ahead.
As I really just think as a rule, people who haven't studied modern art or art history or art, you know, appreciation at all shouldn't fucking comment on modern art, because if I hear one more goddamn time,
why is he so defensive about that? Why is he so defensive about modern art? Go ahead.
About Jackson Pollock, who actually did put an enormous amount of thought into his paintings. For example, like
Jackson Pollock was a fad. Come on, just say it. Well, I hate these sacred fucking cows. Can we just not? It's like, look, there are some things in general that it's like, It's like I can enjoy Shaw Brothers movies. I'll put it this way. Okay, I can enjoy Shaw Brothers movies and watch them. But I know, here's the reality though, is that when a lot of the, the bigger stars and people even like Lau Kar Leung, they said they wanted to unionize and they wanted to get their money from Run Run Shaw, Run Run Shaw cut them off. There were no unions. People were kicked to the curb all the time. Run Run Shaw owned everything. All right. And once, they moved into TVB, the corruption that happened, under the Shaw Brothers logo, it runs pretty deep. So I can enjoy the movies, but also realize that the corruption and the shit that, actors and actresses had to put up with runs fucking deep. That's the difference. It's the same thing with music too. I realize that it's like, yeah, I can enjoy hip hop less and less. I mean, to a point. But I realize a lot of these hip hop artists, they're controlled. I mean, you're seeing Busta Rhymes talk with Van Jones. The fuck is that about? So it's like no sacred cows, And I can't really think of a time, but yeah, he's triggered. He definitely is. Are you Cascadian? Oh.
You just don't fucking understand art if it's not photorealistic. There's a hell of a lot more to art than photorealism, okay?
Oh, this guy is coping. Ooh, I'm not even gonna say coping because that word goes back and forth. But this dude, whew, he must have had a chick. Maybe he lost his virginity to like an art hoe or something like that. Is that why he's mad? Because he, did he pop his cherry because he was fucking an art hoe or something like what's going on with that, man? What's really good?
This shit's like straight out of Jordan Peterson, basically. Like, well, we used to have, beautiful art, and now it's all degenerate. I mean, he's basically making like a degenerate.
No, he isn't. He's saying is that he didn't give a fuck. I'm not even gonna comment on that, but he said this before though. Is that Jackson Pollock and a lot of the other artists were funded by the CIA. That's the whole point. This is why do you call yourself a socialist? But then you're going to be like, well, I'm going to sit here and defend these things. But it's like Jordan Peterson. This is an example of liberalism. Let me go to On Liberalism by Mao, and let's look at this here a minute. Because I think there's this idea where it's like you can't it's like, that I know that there's a specific point I want to bring up. I'm going to start that one more time about combat liberalism. To indulge in irresponsible criticism in private instead of actively putting forward. Okay. There's a specific point I'm looking for. To indulge in personal attacks, pick quarrels. Definitely. This is very true. To indulge in personal attacks, pick quarrels, vent personal spite, or seek revenge instead of entering into an argument and struggling against incorrect views for the sake of unity or progress or getting the work done properly. This is a fifth type. To hear incorrect views without rebutting them. Yep, I think this would fit him pretty well. To hear incorrect views, or at least in his mind, without rebutting them, and even to hear his counter-revolutionary remarks without reporting them, but instead to take them calmly as if nothing had happened. Yeah. Yep. To work half-heartedly, without a definite plan, to regard oneself as having rendered great service to the revolution, to pride oneself on being a veteran. But yeah, I think I covered it, but yeah. Yeah, he's definitely exhibiting some liberalism, at least in my opinion. But yeah, that's some ultra-left breadtube talk indeed. Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of right, though. But a lot of modern artists still overhype shit. Fair enough. Let's go ahead and get into this, though, right quick.
Generate art, like, argument here. Arguably for, like, slightly different reasons, but, like, it comes down to the same bullshit. Social conservatism, or conservatism. Is it good? I would say no, it's oppressive. It's maybe not the best thing that the Soviet Union became more conservative. Like, yes, as you bring in, like backward peasantry into your movement, yes, they're going to bring some of their backward views.
Be careful. Ooh, he's stepping very, very... You gotta be careful what you're saying, sir. These backward views and what. Ooh, he's on the line there, isn't he? He's almost going to say that they're country bumpkins.
On abortion, on homosexuality, on religion, whatever.
That's the problem. See, that's the problem with the left in the United States today. Is let's talk about homosexuality. Let's talk about all these things that, in general, a lot of proles, depending on how you would define proletariat or lumpen proletariat, may agree with, and others they may not agree with. There's plenty of cattiness, in LGBTQ circles between, well, I don't like lesbians because I'm a tranny here. Go ahead. I can't.
Is it good? Should we defend that or say that it was a setback? Should we say that it was a mistake? I see an embrace of that here. Social conservatism isn't good. Lastly, you wore ripped jeans, so I'm becoming a Nazbol. That's not a tenable position, okay? Socialism is a working class movement, and we should tolerate the way that working people choose to dress themselves, okay? For fuck's sake.
Oh, working class people do not generally have ripped clothes and whatnot. They try to look halfway decent. I remember seeing a comment under this. I don't know if it's still there, but from a guy from a Che Guevara Avi, and he was saying it's like, being poor, you want to make yourself look good, so you're going to wear the nicest clothes that you can. And that's true to a point. You're not going to sit there, come in and rip jeans and whatnot. You're going to wear the nicest clothes you have. So no, that's absolute bullshit.
Sake. Caleb, I know you like to wear suits and shit, but I don't, okay? I went to a private school. I had to wear a tie for a number
private school. Here we go.
Of years. I will never wear a tie as long as I fucking live, okay? I like sneakers.
Childish. You can tell this guy's older too. This guy's like a Gen X sort of guy's like, yeah, man, let's listen to Soundgarden, bro. Or something like that. Oh, just go ahead.
Generally, and I like comfortable, more casual clothes. I try to dress with some style. But yeah, I have a few pairs of worn out jeans. Does that make me indecent to your brand of Marxism? You fucking I'm getting mad now. So
we can tell. Golly.
These are bad arguments. Let's continue.
I didn't even want to watch this really, but oh my goodness.
And see where Caleb takes it. And meanwhile, you see Dugan just nodding his head
Beverly
the whole
Hills
time.
Socialist,
and he still hasn't, Caleb really still hasn't addressed head on his points of agreement and disagreements with Dugan. Dugan did, for example, in the BBC interview, say, yes, Russia stepped in to oppose Western intervention in the Ukraine because just to show that the U.S. wasn't the boss. He didn't comment on the ideologies involved. There hasn't been much of a discussion of that yet. Let's see where Caleb takes it.
Council on Foreign Relations, she wrote an article saying the battle in the world today is the battle between the open international system, she called it, and populism. And populism is, it's Adolf Hitler, she says, it's Pinochet, but it's also Evo Morales, it's also Vladimir Putin, it's also Hugo Chavez, all of.
Okay, untenable position number 5 that we're on here.
Oh, man.
Yeah, first of all, we try not to go by how imperialists frame our movement as truth, as a general principle. But yes, Adolf Hitler made populist appeals, yes. But did Caleb, really the untenable thing here, did he just say, while incidentally it seemed to me looking to Dugan and others at the table maybe for approval, that you just said, yeah, it's Hitler and blah, 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 but it's also Morales and Putin and Chavez. Did you really just lump Putin in with Chavez and Morales, who are clearly part of a movement towards socialism, and Putin absolutely is an anti-communist and is not? Why?
Well, the thing is that Putin... Well, hold on. Let's be careful about this now. I'm going to calm myself down a little bit, but Putin still allows the original Communist Party of Russia to still exist. And they still have meetings. Did he shut down that party? I don't know. Now, of course, now I know Wignats will be upset because ultimately a lot of the whole national, let's just say, Nazis, they're shut down in Russia. They don't allow that, obviously, but they shut them down. And with Putin, he gives enough lip service to May Day and gives enough lip service to the Great Patriotic War to keep people happy. And the thing is, once again, Putin was the guy that helped put Russia back on the map. You know, Russia was a neoliberal hellhole. You know, under, I can't even think of his name now, but it's like, after the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia was in a bad place. And you had people like Vladimir Putin who came up, and you can say what you will, and I'm not going to sit here and suck his cock, but it's like he recreated Russia where he can simultaneously defend the Soviet Union on some points, but will also defend Tsarism in some points, because there are Tsarist statues. Of course, the Russian Orthodox Church has become more prominent, or has retaken its prominence. Everything. I'm not gonna, like I say, I gotta be very careful. Yeah, Putin plays 3 cards. ML Fash. Yeah, / hard Tsar Lober. Yeah. Yeltsin. That's what I meant. Yeltsin. Yeah. Putin shut down the Nazis Party. Yeah, Yeltsin was terrible. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, he never talks about that. He's not going to talk about that. It's just like, well, Putin bad. You sound like he sounds like a liberal by saying stuff like that. Go ahead.
Why did you just do that? Oh, is it because you're sitting there at a nationalist conference and you want their fucking approval? I didn't mention this earlier in the video, but the thing I have said in previous videos that has bothered me about him before I even watched this is that Caleb sometimes has people on his show. Again, I haven't watched a lot, but 2 interviews I watched was one with an outright fascist third positionist named Cultured Thug, who he had on, and I feel like he didn't, in my opinion, really push back on him at all. He let him, blather a bunch of nonsense, and then the comment section was all full of Cultured Thugs commenters just spewing hate.
Stop. Who cares? Oh, please. Let it go. Oh my gosh. I mean, why do you care? Go ahead.
Misery and violent rhetoric in the comments. And Caleb just kind of let the guy say his piece without, demonstrating to the audience why, from a Marxist perspective, it's wrong. Although maybe he's not a Marxist, like he just said here. He just said he's a populist. What the fuck? So, why are people listening to this?
Well, the thing is that once again, I feel like I have to go to bat for Caleb here a bit more, but it's like, Caleb felt alienated. Probably once he met these Western leftists when he got to New York and whatnot, and he probably saw how cringe it was. It's like, to a point, he was kind of like that. I've seen some of his early videos where he has long hair, and he's like, well, this is what socialism actually is, and he's kind of awkward. He's kind of autistic, but it's like, he's cleaned himself up. He learned how to be a journalist, right? So it's like, probably as he grew up and as he tried to make himself more into a legitimate person, he realized how goofy a lot of the American left is. That's all it is. And of course, idiots like you who are like a Generation X guy, probably it's like, I wear sneakers, bro. I'm still a young kid, even though I sound like I'm 40 something. Give me a break, dude. It's like, I'm 35, but it's like, I'm not going to try to lie to myself.
Bad. This is not good news. But I mean, I guess you got to say that Putin's a hero if you're on, Russia Today. I know that's not entirely true because Chris Hedges doesn't. But I don't know what's in Caleb Maupin's employment package. But that's sketchy as hell. That's sketchy.
Literally a Vosh point. That's something that Vosh brings up to try to character assassinate people.
Sketchy as hell. The other interview that, of course, when he interviewed that spokeswoman from Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninist, and she was going on about, how they're opposed to transgender people because they're materialists. Well, as I pointed out in another video, sex and gender, there's not you can't make a materialist argument because gender is not a material thing. It often matches your sex, but it doesn't have to. And this has been a thing for.
You know, here's a spicy take about transgenderism. It's simply a tool of capitalism. That's all it is. You know, who put this idea into their heads that, you know, if you feel a certain way, then you like a Barbie doll? Oh, Johnny, you like Barbie dolls at 5 years old? Well, you must be a girl. You must be a real girl inside. So we're gonna, give me a break. That's the whole problem with the left, with transgenderism, this and that. That is in this whole LGBTQ type stuff. Once you get involved with that type of shit, you're asking for. It's like if you think that the left had petty beef over what should be done about this, or how we should do that or something. It's like once you get into the LGBTQ stuff, you're going to have even more catty fighting. You're going to have more backbiting and more of this political nonsense. You know what I'm saying? That's my view. Yeah, gender isn't real, invented. Yeah. Yeah, he's not like most teens. He's 47. Oh, really? I don't know. Yeah. Culture Thug and Caleb Maupin are pretty cool with each other. Is it bad to have outreach? Yeah. What is it with these retards who support having an open mind that try to gatekeep socialism? Yeah, it's ridiculous.
For thousands of years in history. And it's no threat to a socialist movement. And why do you fucking care unless you are really a conservative in disguise?
Well, hold on. It is a threat to socialism because just like anything else, is that there are two sides to a coin. Even people like Maxim Gorky, who wrote, yeah, we support homosexuality, this and that, but it's like, we don't support the homosexuality that's preached about Nazi Germany, this and that. So it's ridiculous to me when he's like, oh, well, it's no threat to socialism. It was in Maxim Gorky's time, or at least when Maxim Gorky was writing about homosexuals that we all see as, homo-fascism and all that business, But still, it's not that simple. There's a dialectic to it.
Guys, yeah, there's no real reason to care about that. Again, it's one of these like Jordan Peterson-esque wedge issues.
Oh, I don't care about it's not 2014. We don't care about Jordan Peterson. We don't care. The guy's practically dead. I mean, the guy was on, was popping pills. His daughter has been, tossed out. I mean, she's basically a hoe. She might as well just be a prostitute. The amount of time she's been thrown around, So it's like, no, the guy is a joke. He's a disgrace. Why do you keep bringing him up as if he's some legitimate dude? We don't care about Jordan Peterson. I don't care about dumb goobers like that, man.
Like, I mentioned before radical traditionalism, this return to tradition and rejection of modernity. It's like the essence of the kind of fascist, mystique, and the fascist mythos is like going back to the pre-modern, which has cucked us and all this kind of bullshit. Well, let's continue on.
These populist regimes, they need to be replaced with the open international system, she's saying. And if you read U.S. history, populism really should be a good thing. I mean, there's a long history of populism in American history. Coming out of the Civil War and the struggle to abolish slavery, there was a populist party. And as the Republican Party moved into being more of a capitalist and a free market party, the mass movement of small farmers and radicals who had fought for the abolition of slavery in the United States, they formed the Populist Party, and they called for the nationalization of the railroads, and they called for the redistribution of land, the fight against the big monopolies, and they fought for an interpretation of Christianity that would favor the downtrodden and the poor, and not favor greed and the rich, as was being promoted by some of the big denominations in the United States. And populism was being portrayed as a bad thing. We have individuals like Huey Long. Huey Long was the governor of Louisiana, the state in the United States during the 1930s. And
what's he going to say about Huey Long? I mean, not Caleb Maupin. I know he's going to be good on Huey Long, but I'm wondering what Socialism for All is going to say about him.
If you go to Louisiana, he is loved. Almost, so many bridges are named after him. There are monuments to Huey Long everywhere, and anyone who was alive during the time of Huey Long's governorship in the 1930s would tell you he was the most popular governor they ever had, and he was considered a populist, and he redistributed the.
I do want to say this though, just as a background, the Long family, is that the Long family had a long. And I say, I'm not just saying that as a pun, but the Long family has had a long run in Louisiana. And there are some who are considered more liberal or more progressive in some ways, but there are some that, are segregationists as well. So it's kind of a mixed bag with the whole Long family. But yeah, Huey Long obviously had the right mix of everything. But the Long family in general, his sons and some of his cousins, this and that, who did get into Louisiana politics. It's a whole mixed bag. So I just want to say that because I think that there's a member of the Long family that I think is still in Louisiana government to this day, I think, or maybe just retired. So it's like, Huey Long may have been assassinated, but his family had had a lot of control in Louisiana, has to be said.
Taxed the oil money, and he used it to feed people and care for people. But yet Huey Long, on a national scale, outside of Louisiana, where he actually had his power, is one of the most demonized figures in U.S. history. There's been fictionalized films, All the King's Men and such, and we hear, in our school textbooks, we learned that Huey Long was the dictator of Louisiana. But you go to Louisiana, everyone remembers him as being the greatest governor they ever had. They wouldn't have roads, they wouldn't have bridges, They wouldn't even have school textbooks if it weren't for Huey Long, the man who laid the foundation.
So Huey Long is kind of an odd figure for a socialist. I guess Maupin, though, now again is a populist. To uplift communists at the time were not big on Huey Long. Huey Long did not. Huey Long is known maybe more than anything else for being kind of a one-of-a-kind, like odd duck who didn't fit neatly into anything else. This was kind of like in the 1930s in Louisiana. So, this was well after the establishment of, the Soviet Union and, the U.S. Socialist Party and Communist Party, who, again, didn't associate with him. He did have economic plans that were redistributive. And one of the reasons that socialists and Marxists didn't like Huey Long is he was more of a social democrat. He was a Cajun-flavored social democrat, but they felt that his programs left the machinery of capitalism intact. He also didn't really engage on race in a meaningful way, even though the KKK was very active at the time.
He was against the Ku Klux Klan. He fought against the Klan. He constantly denounced them. So no, once again. And also, Cajun, there's Acadia and there's Cajun. Even I have to say, I've never lived in Louisiana, but I know that there's Acadia and there's Cajun. And it's two different types of things, those are two different types of groups, and it's like, that's a whole other thing that you can get into as well with, a lot of folks, still spoke French in Louisiana because obviously it was, a lot of, old school Frenchmen lived there. Same thing kind of like with Quebec to a point. But they outlawed the speaking of French for a long time. And just now, French and the old style way that they spoke French, they're trying to bring it back into Louisiana after it was banned for, I don't know, maybe 50, maybe 60 years, I want to say. But yeah, to say that, Cajun and Acadia is one thing just goes to show how ignorant you are. But yeah, go ahead.
From my understanding, he wasn't actively racist. And, of course, social democratic
Creole,
policies do benefit, as long as they're applied evenly, working people of all races. But he was asked several times in his tenure to, address race in a more head-on way and declined to do so. So,
what was he supposed to do about race? The thing is that he went head-to-head with the Ku Klux Klan numerous times. You think that you can only... You know what? I'm just gonna make a fool of myself, so I won't do that. But it's like, what the hell did you expect him to do about race? What did you expect him to do? I don't get it.
What Caleb kind of closes with is, well, the national press, you know, with the headed by the 1%, demonized him. Therefore, you know, he's sort of wonderful. And it's like it's this kind of simplistic thinking where it's like, you know, it's just contrarianism kind of. It's like anything my enemy doesn't like, I automatically like, or it's automatically good. That's not the case. I mean, we need to learn to evaluate things for ourselves. It's just like, obviously, MSNBC doesn't like Putin. That doesn't make Putin good. They can both be bad, okay? Like, we don't have to support.
This is why, once again, that the left cannot separate itself from liberalism in the United States. It's just like, well, you know, we need to do some analysis and whatnot. Well, okay, explain to the people then the points that are different from MSNBC. It's the same thing with this vein of the left today in the United States that wants to go on and on. And let me make sure here that I get it right. When I say left, I mean Marxist-Leninists, you know, your Maoists, your anarchists, all that sort of field that exists. Maybe even your, you know, your left comms and all that other feijoa. That's what I mean by the left. This insult, this idea that they're very careful. They don't like China. Basically, is what I want to get at. They don't like China. They say, "Oh, look at the Uyghur people," and all this stuff. And of course, you know, they'll say, "Oh, well, of course they're being, you know, imprisoned. They're limiting their birth rates and all this sort of thing. It's a genocide." And it's like, well, and of course they'll say that, you know, of course that one guy is a crazy evangelical, this and that. But it's like they will bring up people that still support, you know, Uyghur movements. That, you know, it's just, you see this sort of thing, and it's just like they can't really separate themselves completely from MSNBC and these other neocons and neoliberals that just want to control China. That's all they want. And it's like they can't, you know, the left can't separate themselves from that idea. They can't really do that. It's like, well, we like these few folks instead. It's like that. That's why when you get into rhetoric and get into this whole sort of thing, it's like, well, I don't like Putin, but I'm a leftist, you know, and that we need to have this sort of idea instead. But it's like people don't see things that way. It's like, oh, you don't like Putin, huh? Oh, okay. You're just like the rest of those neocons and neolibs who support control in Ukraine, this and that. No, I'm different. People don't see things that way. It's one of those either or type of things. You're either my enemy or my friend. That's kind of the simplified, you know, Carl Schmitt type of thing. But that's just me. Yeah, do nothing and capitalism will fall. Yeah. Putin isn't good, but he's anti-imperialist. Is socialism for all a left com? I have no idea. I don't think he is. He obviously has plenty of knowledge on theory, but he sure sounds like he has a left com perspective on anti-imperialism. Yeah. He doesn't seem to understand historical context. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Huey Long helped both whites and blacks in the 20s and 30s South. Yeah, exactly. Actually, yeah, there were several Louisiana governments in the Long family after Huey. Yeah, that's true.
Support one of them just because, like, we don't like one of, you know, the other one. So these are just kind of shit positions in my view, but let's see where he goes.
Populism, it's been widely distorted, and the way you read it in the United States, it's almost as if to be a populist is the equivalent of being a Ku Klux Klansman. That's what we're told. If you're a populist, you want to dangle African Americans from trees and kill them, and that's just not the reality of what populism is. But because any notion of populism has really been abandoned by the left, we're starting to see this demonization of populism in all circles. In the United States, there is a real confusion about how to move forward, and the organized political left is kind of at a loss. You know, a lot of the constituency in organized political leftist groups is very generational. It's been in their family for years. You know, their parents came to the United States in the 1920s or 30s, and they were members of the Communist Party. then their children, grew up to be
Red diaper
1960s
babies.
New left
Yeah.
and opposed the Vietnam War and burned their draft cards. And now their children are Antifa and anarchists and breaking the windows of banks and attacking people and such. And that demographic in the United States is dying. Most of the individuals in that demographic no longer call themselves left. And this
Sure.
kind of urban, cosmopolitan, middle-class grouping that defined leftism in U.S. history is vanishing. However, there are many people in the United States who are opposed to capitalism. And, during the presidential election, I'm a leftist, I come out of a left background, but I saw Donald Trump speak. And there were many times that he spoke and I applauded. I heard him talk about how, there's this elite.
Okay, down, down, down we go. If you applauded anything Donald Trump said, like, because you took it at face value, like Trump would contradict himself sometimes in the same sentence. He was just
I await his videos on Joe Biden. Go ahead.
throwing anything at the wall to see what would stick. He didn't mean a goddamn word of it. I mean, the only thing he didn't do was start.
Well, yeah, only big brain niggas like you can think that way. When you actually hear it, see, once again, this goes to show the elitism that he has in his head. Because think of it as you're an auto worker who, is still in Detroit or something like that. And, Donald Trump is saying this stuff. What are people supposed to think? What are people supposed to think? When they hear that, it actually makes them feel like they actually give half a fuck about him. And that's all people want. That's all that they have accepted at this point. Is just lip service. They thought that it sounded good. That, yeah, Donald Trump's going to try to bring things back. And he's going to, make America great again and all this business. And instead, you have all these elitist sort of folks who are just like, oh, Donald Trump, he's not presidential, this and that. Well, we're going to see a presidential person come up, aren't we? And we're going to see more wars. We're going to see more involvement in, foreign policy that we don't need to be involved with. And all these folks, all these so-called leftists, they're going to say, oh, well, I was always against Joe Biden. When in reality, they just wanted to dab on Trump. And it's going to be very disappointing. But that's not surprising.
Major new wars, but he also didn't really do much to rein in the existing wars. Donald Trump was a complete used car salesman, fake and a phony, which is kind of like the, populist nationalist shtick, just appealing to this brain dead, anti-intellectual, lowest common denominator. You know what I'm talking about? Like for Caleb to
the idiotic people that you are trying to get hold of as well, that you are trying to win their hearts and minds, the people that you should be talking to. But instead, you'd rather waste your time talking about Caleb Maupin.
Ironically, be like, I think Donald Trump said some good things. Donald Trump doesn't mean a goddamn word he says. What are you, shitting me? So again, but here we are.
What were you doing though? What were you... If you're a true leftist, let me ask you this question. If you are a true leftist, and I've heard some things that have already kind of told me this idea, but it's like, all these peasants who come in with their backwards ideas, this and that, you can tell right away that this is a guy who doesn't want to talk to ordinary people. He doesn't want to talk to the guy who's having to work at GitHub so that he could pay for college or something like that. He doesn't want to talk to the guy who's an Uber driver. He doesn't want to talk to these folks. He doesn't want to talk to ordinary people and try to understand what their struggles are. He has a preconceived notion of what proletariat means, and we're going to stick to that. And it's like, if you break that and you're too much of a country bumpkin and I don't want to talk to you, then I'm not going to deal with you. Very elitist. That's the impression that I'm getting from him. Very elitist. But that's just me. Maybe there's something else that y'all are saying. But yeah. Was waiting for the opportunism. Yeah. You should do a bingo while doing these. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Are playing to the right. Playing to that sentiment. This is pretty disgusting. Let's go on.
Oh, how dare you play to those folks that still do work in this country? How dare you?
The United States, these international bankers. I applaud.
I know. Oh, I love they. Oh, They love to international bank. What does it mean to be a banker? Does he mean anti-Semitism? He meant anti-Semitism. Ah! You can be a Gentile and be a banker. You can be African and be a banker. You could be, like I said earlier, you could be, Milosevic, and you can be a banker. So, international banker, I know the Jews. It's just like you want so bad to find anti-Semitism. You see anti-Semitism in your soup. Oh.
When he talked about how, in Syria, or in Iraq and all these countries, we have attacked them, and the result has been terrorism getting stronger, and that the U.S. population is gaining nothing from these wars. I applauded when he said that.
Yep.
Now, I didn't agree with Trump about certain issues like immigration, certain issues like empowering the policing agencies in the United States. But in many ways, Trump was better than Hillary Clinton when it came to the concerns that are important to me. Bernie Sanders, he was removed from the race, and we had the choice of Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. And there were many people who would have voted for Bernie Sanders who voted for Donald Trump in the election. Populism is the future. I mean, this future that's offered. You talk about the life that millennial Americans, that's what they call those of us in the United States born in the 1990s or the late 1980s. They call us millennials, and the future that is being offered to us by that by the society is very grim. Millennials essentially they are never allowed to become adults. They never are able to achieve the income level their parents had. They have a very low standard of living. And they essentially live out their adult life as if they're children almost. Yeah. It's very weird. Anything that is conceived of as taking responsibility or growing up or being an adult is kind of frowned on. And young Americans are essentially encouraged to just permanently act like irresponsible children, to not have children of their own, to not buy homes of their own, to just kind of work a low-paying job, use drugs, and just kind of live this lifestyle in which one pursues, hedonistic pleasures. And that's the future that the society is offering. And if you want to look beyond,
that's true. Decriminalization. The decriminalization. Capitalists or the powers that be, whichever word you want to use, the globalists or whatever term, they have realized that if we legalize this stuff, we can just have Walmart and the other corporations. Why don't we just have them sell this stuff? Then we can just kill two birds with one stone. We can get rid of these, these drug dealers and whatnot that partly we helped to create once again. But now we can just legalize it. So we can have heroin in store. Well, maybe not heroin, but, like cannabis. And we can have, sativa or whatever the case may be all over the country in Walmart or something like that, and there may be some indie companies here and there, but it's like in general, more money. That's what but yeah, he is absolutely right. Caleb Maupin is correct.
On that, and if you want to talk about reorganizing U.S. society to serve the public and to serve the people in the U.S. society, and if you want to question foreign policy in the United States,
exactly.
The second you do that, you're called a fascist.
Holy shit, dude. I don't even know where to start on that one. No, first of all.
Let's see here. I like my legal pot, though. Fair enough. You can go ahead and like pot. That's fine. I'm not going to sit here and make your choice. I'm not going to sit here and, be your father about it. What I will say, though, is that once you get it legalized, and once it becomes legalized nationwide, then it will simply be swallowed up by the system. It will be co-opted. But that's my view. You can have your own opinion. If you want to have it, go ahead. But that's just me.
Nobody's calling anyone a fascist because they want to be anti-imperialist in their foreign policy. That's not it. Okay? It would be one thing if Trump had said that and then people made up shit about his being a fascist, or being racist or whatever. They didn't make it up. He is a goddamn, he is in that orbit, okay? Whether we want to split hairs and say, oh, well, he's not really
orbit. Oh, I love that. Go ahead.
Third positionist, blah, blah, blah. He didn't, quote Mussolini. Donald Trump is that anti-intellectual, pseudo-populist, pro 1%, fascist in that tradition. You could say it's not fascism at full strength if you want, but I mean, there's not literally a tank rolling down every street, although most of the police departments in rural areas, like, in any sort of like mid-sized city, they do have that shit. They do have military
Hold on.
equipment.
He said rural, and then he said mid-sized city. So hold on. So for example, I mean, those two are incongruent. For example, I'm just going to dox myself here a little bit, but it's like, okay, that's like comparing Iowa Park, Texas, and you compare that to, I don't know, Dallas, and see those police forces and say that they're both militarized? No, that's completely incongruent.
This kind of right-wing posturing is so disingenuous. It's like, I don't know how to unpack this. Like, first of all, the millennial slamming, and I know he couched it somewhat in terms of, well, they're being encouraged to do this.
That's true, though.
Like, well, first of all, dude, you're clearly coming from more of like a socially conservative, stick up your ass kind of place. Personally.
So because he grew up in Ohio and because he was like a Protestant, I believe, you're going to say that, oh, well, he's more socially conservative. The thing is, to a point, societies are built on social conservative. You have to have that for social cohesion to a point, so that everyone has kind of the same idea on things and say, yeah, we're going to agree on this. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, rural or mid-sized city. Yeah, pick one. Exactly, yeah.
So why don't you just own that, okay? Everybody's somewhere on that spectrum. I think it's safe to say Caleb is definitely a little bit more on the uptight side. And, prone to look at modern art.
You're uptight, bro. What are you, though? I mean, once again, I saw how angry you got about the whole modern art thing. It's like, how uptight are you about that? Once again, it sounds like that you came from a private school, this and sort. It's kind of like, it's kind of like 8 Mile, where it's like, it's like he went to a private school. His real name's Clarence, and Clarence's parents have a real good marriage, and all that. It's like, that's literally what it's like. Go ahead. If y'all remember that last scene from 8 Mile, yeah.
Art is, just scribbles and prone to look at,
look at it. He's still mad about the modern art. He is still upset. Oh,
drugs. They're an immoral person. Like, whatever. Maybe actually people are just enjoying some of the liberties that are available to us. And yes, we are being asked to live in poor circumstances with low standards of living. That isn't good. But I don't think, I don't know anyone who's enthusiastic about that, really. Like, that's such like a gross oversimplification and misunderstanding of like why people do things, and like cultural change. Like this, I don't think is a topic Caleb should be speaking on at all, because he's basically making like Jordan Peterson-esque, like
all he can say is he's like Jordan Peterson. This is his only argument. He's like Jordan Peterson. Except the fact that Jordan Peterson would probably be more on your side in real life, because obviously he was a pill popper. So I don't get. Go ahead. I'm not even gonna waste my time with that.
Pop psychology, bad conservative arguments here. And meanwhile, you see Dugan like nodding his head. That dude is an actual fascist. Okay.
What has he done? What has Dugan done as a fascist? He's written a book. Okay, he wrote a book. He was part of the Nazgul Party. Was the Nazgul Party any bit relevant in Russia? I would argue no. It wasn't that relevant in Russia. People see Alexander Dugin, as far as I know, in Russia, like the United States sees Alex Jones. They don't see him as a threat. But people like you need people like them. You need people like them to point your fingers. I'm not going to sit here and defend everything Dugin has done, but it's like, let it go. You just need... Comparing Caleb Maupin to Jordan Peterson is asinine beyond belief. It is. It absolutely is, yeah. Is the only good subject where I think human nature is a good argument, yeah.
But again, fascists, It's hard to find fascists who like being called fascists today, unlike Marxists, who usually will own the label. Fascists, with very few exceptions, generally don't like being called fascists. So they will, dodge and sneak and sidestep and do everything to be like, well, I'm not really a fascist.
Yeah.
You're part of the far right emergence. Just own it, okay? Just own it.
Well, that's like, hold on. Thing is that you're proud to say you're a Marxist, but it's like, would you call yourself a Marxist-Leninist? That's the difference, isn't it? Because obviously Lenin actually got into power. And of course, that's a whole different type of thing, isn't it? It's like the slur of saying Stalinists. And of course, Stalinism is a bullshit word anyway. It's just Marxist-Leninism. That's all it is. But of course, you don't want to be called, you don't want to be called a Stalinist, do you? You see what I'm saying? That comes from Euro-communism and all that business. But go ahead.
This really just keeps getting worse, and I don't see how Caleb, this is not a clip I would have posted. I haven't listened to that much Caleb Maupin, so maybe he talks like this all the time, but this is not improving so far on the clip. Let's keep going.
And you cannot do that. To be a communist, one of the right-wing commentators in the United States, he put out on Twitter, he said that, communism is an ideology that can only appeal to those who hate themselves. And I looked at this and I thought, Fidel Castro, does he hate himself? Did Stalin hate himself? But if you look at the modern left, if you look at the people that are going around and protesting against Donald Trump, that makes sense. A lot of them are self-hating, and there's a real worship of weakness in left-wing circles.
Okay,
he's right.
My jaw really just dropped at worship of weakness in leftist circles. What? If you agree with this, what he's saying, please, by all means, get off my channel. Go over to this right-wing communist, fascist hybrid, whatever fucking populist garbage he is selling. But you're not a socialist. That's this demonizing of oppressed people as weak and hating themselves as making sense.
Oppressed. I love that he says that. So when Black Lives Matter goes out to, some restaurant that has, outdoor seating, al fresco. Sorry, that's the proper word, al fresco. When they're eating al fresco, and they're saying, you're an evil, white dude, this and that and everything. You support that. Go ahead. I want to see where he goes with this.
No, we're vulnerable. We're oppressed. We're poor. Maybe that's why we don't wear fucking suits, you fucking dipshit.
Golly, he's mad about the suits, isn't he? It sounds like this kid got beat. This is a guy who was shoved into lockers, or something like that, or it sounds like this is a guy who was probably smoking doobies in the bathroom. I imagine that he's probably one of those guys who thinks he's one of the young brothers from AC/DC or something like that. I went to a private school. I'm never going to wear a tie again. I'm never going to wear a tie again, Mom and Dad. I don't want to. That sounds what it sounds like. And it's look, I went to public school, so I can't really speak on it. All I had to ever do was tuck in my shirt. And that was only because they wanted to check for weapons or something like that, But it's bruh, private school is over. You need to move on.
Oh my God. This is incredible. This is really incredible. There's still a few minutes left. I don't even, how can you top this? Talk about punching down. Holy shit. So really Caleb's theory is we all need to be better dressed. Fuck you, dude. When Old Navy opened up in the 2000s and it was that became the clothing that everybody could wear. It was a, cheap version of the Gap. I mean, John Oliver had a joke later. I don't like John Oliver, but he could be funny sometimes. But he had a joke about how Old Navy clothes make you look like a tacky murderer. I mean, and it's kind of true. Those are shitty fucking clothes. But guess what? When you are barely getting by month to month, those are the clothes you can afford. And it's not
Old Navy. Old Navy's expensive as fuck. I don't know what you're talking about, bro. I went to Goodwill. I mean, I'm not even that rich. I went to places like Value Village, for my clothes. I don't know what you're talking about, So I got one of my nice ties from, actually. But it's like, what you talking about? People I know, they went to Goodwill. They went to something like that, where they're wearing clothes from like the 80s or something like that. So Old Navy, let me take a look at this. Hold on. Let me just show this. I don't know if they're going to copyright strike me or not. Let me see how much Old Navy is. Let me just go ahead and take a look. Because I have a feeling not ordinary motherfuckers are not wearing Old Navy. I'm just going to, let's cut this out. Let me see what we got here. Let's look at men right quick. Just men. Let's go ahead and see their prices. Let me make sure. Maybe I'll get owned here. Well, let me see their prices. Oh, Lord have mercy. I hate the ads. Okay, let's take a look here. Jeans, $15. That's somewhat reasonable. I guess, I don't know. I'm not gonna buy it. I don't endorse Old Navy, but it's like, okay, $15 for some jeans. But it's like, I don't know about that. Yeah. Neocon Warhawk. Yeah, Dugan was interviewed. Yeah, exactly. Conservative thought, Lauren Southern. That's true. Yep, that's true. And she was with what's her name? The other, he's just that out of touch. Yeah, he has to be. Yeah, exactly. Why would you say Old Navy, dude? It's just. Go ahead.
Working people's fault, and it doesn't mean we hate ourselves when we have to wear those clothes. We can't afford anything else.
He's so mad about the clothes. He's saying is that there are people who use this as simply a costume. That's what he's saying, is that there are a lot of rich kids who got involved with leftism and who would put on these ripped up clothes to make themselves look the part, like they were really working class, when in actuality they weren't. Of course, apart from, what's that guy? The real dandy. I cannot think of that guy's name. Nathan Robinson. That's it. Yeah, Nathan Robinson. Now, of course, I mean, he's a dandy, and he really is. Look at this guy, Nathan Robinson. This guy's a joke. Yeah. Now, of course, Nathan Robinson, he wears a suit and everything else like that, but he looks like he would be sipping a, he's sipping a mint julep or something like that, watching the horses go by. Oh my, look at that. Look, it seems my horse has won. Oh, yes. Well, thank you, darling. I mean, look at this guy. Look at this goof. I mean, come on now. I mean, that's just, oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I always love to laugh at Nathan Robinson. I'm just saying, come on, bro. Just ridiculous. Yeah. I want to see this man live in the 1960s. Yeah. Neo-progs equals neocons masquerading as progressives. Yep.
And then, I mean, personally, I would tend to be more of like a thrift store, try to go for some kind of style. Whatever.
Oh, here we go.
But like, you buy what you can afford. Although I'm sure my clothing would be too funky for Caleb. I'm sure.
He's not talking about hand-me-downs. You notice that? He's not talking about hand-me-downs or anything else, where it's like, you wear your kid, you wear your brother's suit or something like that. That's what he's talking about. He wants people to look the part and to look respectable. He doesn't want you looking like a slob or looking like it's a costume to try to get very temporary support. He wants people to last, to say, yeah, this guy is dressing the part, which means that he's somewhat disciplined in that sense. Because if you're left wing or right wing, you want disciplined people around you. You want those folks that are going to ride or die, that are going to be there for the revolution, right? So you want people to say that, okay, this guy can put on a suit and to make himself look decent. This guy can be on my side that I can truly call a comrade. I'm not going to give blank lip service by dressing like a goof. I think that's what he's trying to get at. But go ahead.
Sorry, I don't go to like Brooks Brothers or like, whatever.
You don't have to go to Brooks Brothers. You can go to the thrift store and you can find suits, Jagoff. Golly.
This is craziness. All right,
no, it isn't.
Anything that is perceived of as weakness or disempowering, that's worshipped. And anything that is conceived of as strength or showing pride in oneself or building up one's strength, that's attacked. And that's said, well, that's fascist. You can't be like that. The first thing that happens to young people when they go to the university and they take gender studies or race studies or queer studies is they're immediately told that, that their identity, the way that they are as a person, is wrong.
I'm sorry. So now we're going the full Jordan Peterson. We're getting into gender studies. Everything I like is every major I don't like is gender studies. Okay, first of all, I took gender studies. Guess what? That's not what.
Stop right there. Your bias is showing. Go ahead. Sorry for the snort.
What they tell you. Okay? That isn't what they tell you. They may open your mind to the fact that like stereotypical enforced ideas of gender are not the only possible concept. In sociology, we study society scientifically.
He's a sociologist. So this guy. Okay, so he criticizes Vosh, but it's only because he's in the same tier as Vosh. Vosh is also a sociology major. That's what sociology. If Vosh and this guy are examples of what sociology majors turn into. Ooh, I'm glad I got my degree in marketing. I'll just put it that way. Oh, Lord have mercy. And you can criticize me for getting a degree in marketing. That's fine. But,
including statuses like class, race, and gender, to see that they are social constructs laid on top of biology, but that those social constructs are a map, not a territory,
mischaracterized mop
and that
used
those
most
maps
way. Yeah,
can be
painfully
redrawn
here,
in different ways depending on the cultural ideas
hear
that
it,
people
shit. Yeah,
have
there we go.
about biology and society. And from a Marxist perspective, we see that a lot of this arises out of the way that people arrange their society due to how we have to live to survive, material circumstances. He is really going the full Jordan Peterson on this one, like ranting about gender studies, because that's the fucking problem. It's not the fact that we're squeezed like penny for penny. It's that everybody's made to take gender studies and the liberals are brainwashing us. Blah, 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 blah.
He didn't say you were made to be. He didn't say you were made
I say this
to
as
do
someone who
gender
had
studies.
courses in gender studies. It didn't make me weak. It didn't make me a bad person. This is foul and disgusting propaganda he's putting out. Let's see what other surprises he has.
And they need to learn to hate themselves more. That's the message the left is giving young Americans. And not surprisingly, it's not a very attractive message. It's really not an attractive message. And it's not only for white Americans, I will say. Black Lives Matter, which is this activist group that has been funded and supported by the highest levels of the U.S. political establishment.
Yep.
One of their primary goals is to...
Okay, now we're going to complain about Black Lives Matter. Oh, first of all, Joe Biden just won the presidency.
Boy. Mm-hmm.
Guess what the Joe Biden Democrats are saying right now? They're blaming Black Lives Matter and defund the police and all that stuff for almost costing them a win.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call that support from the highest levels. I mean, we've seen that all summer.
I think what he's referring to, I think with Caleb Maupin, I'm not going to sit here and carry water for him, as I've tried to say, but I think he's referring to the fact that BLM has gotten money from Amazon. It's gotten money from Ben & Jerry's. It's got money from all sorts of different places. It's almost like it's considered hush money, or it's considered, a payment of some sort,
The Democrats don't want to do anything meaningful on police reform unless Caleb Maupin is a Joe Biden Democrat.
We'll go ahead and stop it there. Yeah. We'll go ahead and stop it there, Bolshevik cosmonaut. Yeah, it's enough. Yeah, it's enough cringe. We'll go ahead and leave it there. Yep. So let me go ahead and we're not gonna respond to Vosh. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna go ahead and we'll go ahead and let this go pretty soon. But yeah, they are being used. Yes. Yeah. That's all I can say. Yeah. Mutual aid. Yeah. Panthers were better. Yeah. But I think that's about all I need to say on that. I will say this is that eventually lefties are going to have to wake up and realize that, the 40 chess thought that, Joe Biden is going to be better because he's more bourgeoisie was probably not the best option. And I think there's going to be a lot of struggle sessions that are going to occur because of that. I do feel that way. BLM protests are dumb and cringe and astroturf. Yep, I agree. And they only come around during election time. Always one of those things, but yeah. Very, very sad. Very sad indeed, but it has to be called out. It has to be called out. Excuse me for... okay, I already muted it. Okay. Let me take a look right quick here. Let me look here. What do we got? What in the world is this?
Let's get together. Let's turn things around. Me and you. Me and you.
Yeah.
Together we can do.
Huh. Huh. Yeah. Yeah. Oreo kills cats. Oh, yeah. That's true, yeah. Interesting, yeah. Open your mind. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just kind of the typical ad, I would say, but yeah. Yeah. Well, there we go, folks. Sorry about that, yeah. Such is the way, isn't it? Yeah. R.I.P. the cat, R.I.P. America. Exactly. Yeah. Vosh doesn't like anti-elitism because he is part of the privileged elite himself. Yep, that is true. That is true, Bolshevik Cosmonaut. That is absolutely true. But yeah, we did talk a lot about that. And I actually did see it, and I was going to respond to it, but he kept on putting that video on private. It's kind of interesting to me how he kept putting, they keep on putting these videos on private, and then they take it off private, where it's like, well, I never did that. So that's all, I did talk about that socialism for all quite a bit, and maybe I shouldn't have done that. So apologies. We do, yeah, I'll leave it there, I think. Oh, is there anything else we need to talk about? Like I say, I kind of said in the beginning that, Pfizer, of course, is really controlling the narrative on this whole vaccine thing, on this whole vaccine business that they have. I think that it's just completely astroturfed. I think people can say what they will about the the vaccine, this and that, but I feel like it's ridiculous. Ultimately they control the narrative of it, and they can continue to say what they want. But yeah, his dad works in Hollywood. He said himself, I'm sure parts of his lifestyle is funded. Yeah. His way of earning also explains his love for markets. Yeah, exactly. It's like if your dad is going to pay for stuff, of course you're not going to be like, oh, well, I'm complete, I support market socialism instead. But yeah, we never finished that Martin Goldberg video on fascism. No, we didn't. You're right. I guess we can finish that right quick. Let me see here. Okay, let me see here what we got. Let me see what we got here. Martin Goldberg. Oh, let me type in Mussolini. Let me see if that makes a difference. Here we go. Okay.
Welcome back. You here with Dr. Goldberg, your very own.
I think we were about.
Today, I am proud to announce the publication
Well, we'll go ahead and
of my
finish it
latest
up,
book, The Truth About Mussolini and Fascism.
Just let it play for a minute.
This text is actually 10 years or so in the making, believe it or not, because in 2011, I started a blog dedicated to Italian politics. And I was very interested in delving into Mussolini and fascism because I had a couple of relatives who, they were deceased by now, rest in peace, not people with a lot of means, not rich or prominent, but they loved Il Duce. And that didn't make any sense to me because if you look at the typical American textbook on World War II, it'll contain something like,
no, he's really what you said. He was a meanie. You can't say that.
which of course is not accurate, flat out. So I began with my local library and the internet.com, which had a little bit of information, as much as I needed. when I got to university, I had a very passionate, exotic, interracial love affair with the library. And that's when I started stumbling across Luigi Villari, Herbert Schneider.
Okay, let's do a vote. Let's do a vote. Do we want to finish up this video, or do we want to look at one of Martin Goldberg's other videos? Press 1 if you want me to finish this video, or press 2 if you want me to do another of his videos. Just give me a minute now. I'll wait for your response. Two? Okay. 2 it is then. Let's see what Martin Goldberg has to say. Let's see, what else does he have here? Strasserism and syndicalism. Let's see here. Sad truth about FDR. Thoughts on MGTOW. Black women debate. Roosh v. Empowered Blonde saves the world. 48 laws. Okay, so this guy is kind of like, okay. Liberal fascism book review. You see here. Downtown white police. Let's see here. American mindset is afraid of 3 words: socialism, communism, and fascism. Yep, exactly. Don't say those words in your political career. Will be just fine. Yep, that's true. That is true. Let's see what we got here. Colleges are collapsing. I don't argue with that. Request getting married in the military. Okay, so this guy, yeah, very much great incel war. Okay, so this guy is basically like a MGTOW sort of guy. Okay, rich dad, poor dad question. Let's do Peter, I predict this shift. How about that?
Welcome back here with Goldberg. Today we're going to be talking about Peter. Man, I predicted that shift. And of course, back in the day, I was a big Ron Paul fan. I still like him, to be honest. Naturally, if you support Ron Paul, your economist of choice will be Peter Schiff. And he's a big contrarian. He thinks the United States is unsustainable. It's spending too much money that it doesn't have, printing to make up for what it can't collect in taxes. Saving rates are extremely low, as are artificially small interest rates. And therefore, you should not be investing U.S. stocks so much, but rather emerging markets, international ventures, and of course, gold. He loves that yellow rock. And he's not a big fan of Bitcoin, which is interesting. So we're going to go through some of his predictions and whether or not you should be following him. Now, as with anyone, he's going to have nuggets of wisdom. I do like listening to him at times, as well as George Gammon is another one. But it's one of those things. Often analysts are wrong, right? And the worst are the ones with the PhDs in economics, because they're all good with the advanced mathematics, the rule of 72, but they can't get their hands on proper trading techniques. So that's just something. I thought we would start by looking at some of his company, Euro Pacific Capital's fund offerings to see how they've been doing as of recently. This one is the International Bond Fund. Since the inception in 2010 till now, pretty lackluster returns. Now you might say,
he's not a
MGTOW.
MGTOW?
That's not fair. So let's go here. Emerging markets, small companies from December 2010 up till today. It's had an okay gain, so I guess you could point to that. Now beware, pretty high expense ratio, 1.75%. That's typically what I do not advise. It should be sub.
Right. I did try to listen to it, but yeah, this is kind of meh. All right. Let me see what other video we got here. What other video we got from this guy? What else can we look at? I don't know. Honestly, I'm just kind of bored with this. I was kind of bored with this. At least I don't think he is. Yeah. He just sounds boring. Like I say, I mean, I don't think I'm some hugely, interesting guy, but it's like, yeah, this is kind of boring. Is it okay if we just end it here? I'm sorry. I do try to apply to y'all and try to respond to things, but I don't really want to get into this. Is that okay? yeah, it's just kind of boring, and yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to cover basically just talking about Joe Biden, this and that, and just see how bad it is. But yeah, I'm just kind of winding down a little bit. Is that okay, folks? So make sure here. I'm just kind of. Vosh and Pac-Man interview. Okay. Well, I appreciate that then. All right. Yeah. But yeah, maybe we'll talk about the Vosh and Pac-Man interview. I'll find it and then we'll kind of talk about it later. Okay. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and end it there. We'll yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and end it. I hope y'all have a good rest of the night. You know, it's been a while. Let me go ahead and give my props. Nazbol Jedi, Punjabify, Temujin. You know, Army Ball was in here. I saw Cosmo. You know, Cosmo or Bolshevik Cosmonaut. It's been, you know, I haven't seen him in a stream, but you know, I appreciate that. Nationalist Doomer, Punjabify. Who else we got here? Ole. Yeah, Bolshevik Cosmonaut. I said that already. The Nationalist Doomer. Who else? Who else do we have here? Oh yeah, Kaz back on Discord. Let's see. I saw Uncle Ho. He was at the beginning, I think. You know, but yeah, we'll go ahead and yeah, we'll go ahead and leave it there. Like I said, I think we'll go ahead and end it there. See you later. Yeah, Martin's political ideology videos are much more interesting. Kate, yeah. Okay. Well, see you later then, folks. I think we'll go ahead and end it there, though. I hope we'll have a good rest of the night or a good day wherever you are in the world. And goodbye. There we go. I'm trying to get that right somehow.